Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. And today we're tackling something that I think is relevant to pretty much everyone.
Mm.
And that's how our relationship with physical things is changing in
Right.
this increasingly digital world that we're living in. So to guide our deep dive today, we're looking at the non-things, how we stopped living the real, which is a book by the philosopher Byung-Chul Han. I'm curious, have you ever just sat back and thought about
Yeah.
how being constantly plugged in to this digital world and just surrounded by information
Mm.
might be affecting us on a deeper level?
Yeah, definitely. It's not a question we ask ourselves enough. I think we often kind of view new technology as just like progress,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't really stop to think, what if in that embrace we lose something else
Yeah.
that's pretty essential to just like being human?
Yeah, that's exactly what Han gets at in his book. He argues that we're kind of moving away from a world that's grounded in physical things towards a world where information itself is the dominant force. It's almost like our brains are becoming these high-powered hard drives where they're capable of storing massive amounts of data,
Right.
but maybe we're losing that ability to really connect with the world that we can touch and
Ah.
feel around us.
Totally. And Han uses a really powerful image from a novel to kind of illustrate this shift.
Okay.
He talks about Yoko Gawa's Hisuyaka Nakeshu. And in that novel, there's this island
Mm.
where objects and memories, they just disappear.
Okay, that sounds a little too close to home for me. And imagine your phone just permanently disappearing.
Right.
That would be rough.
But yeah, Han isn't saying our phones are literally going to vanish into thin air or anything like that. His
Yeah.
point is more that we're so overloaded with information,
Yeah.
so fixated on the newest thing, that we're losing touch with what grounds us in reality.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day when I was going through some old photos, physical photos that I have, and I realized that the memories tied to those photos
Mm-hmm.
were so much more vivid to me than any digital photo that I have on my phone.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of how physical objects can hold memory
Mm.
and meaning in a way that digital information doesn't.
So Han calls this shift from the tangible to the digital, a move from the terrestrial order to the digital order.
All right.
So what exactly does he mean by that?
So in the terrestrial order,
Mm-hmm.
our experiences are defined by solid, enduring objects.
Mm-hmm.
Think about holding a physical book in your hand, the weight of it, the texture of the pages.
Or the smell of an old book.
Exactly. All of those things.
Yeah.
Those were all part of a tangible reality.
Yeah.
But in the digital order, information itself becomes
Mhm.
the dominant force shaping our world and our experience. And we increasingly live in what Han calls the infosphere,
Okay.
where this information flows constantly, rapidly, and it kind of starts to shape our perceptions and our interactions.
So instead of reality being shaped by, things that we can touch and hold, it's shaped by this constant stream of information. Right.
That we encounter online.
Yeah.
So we're living inside the internet.
That's a great way to put it. And it raises some big questions about how this shift is impacting our sense of time, history, and even our ability to create lasting memories.
I mean, if you think about the smart home,
Yeah.
that's a prime example of the digital order. And it promises us freedom from certain types of labor, but it also raises questions about privacy and control.
Exactly.
Are we becoming more reliant on algorithms to manage our lives,
Yeah.
even in our own homes?
Yeah, and the convenience of that comes at a cost. Han argues that this seamless integration of technology into our lives can lead to what he calls a smart prison.
Okay.
So, we might be free from certain tasks, but we're also potentially exposed to constant surveillance and algorithmic control.
Yeah, it feels like we're trading tangible freedoms for a new kind of digital control.
That's the paradox, I think, of the digital age.
Mm.
And it's really apparent when we look at, the smartphone, it's kind of like a symbol of this era that we're living in.
This device has become our constant companion, maybe even like our captor in some ways.
I mean, who isn't glued to their phone these days?
Right. It's an extension of us. It's a tool we use for everything: communication,
Yeah.
entertainment, navigation. And Han points out how this reliance is changing our very sense of touch and perception.
Okay.
He contrasts the experience of using, those old rotary phones,
Hmm.
where there was physical resistance when you dialed,
Yeah.
a sense of intentionality when making a call.
We had to work for it back then.
Exactly. Now compare that to the experience of using a touchscreen. Smooth, frictionless,
Yeah.
everything's instantly accessible. This ease of use can be good. But it can also kind of breed this impatience
Mm-hmm.
and this decreased tolerance for anything that requires effort. And
Yeah.
we're constantly being conditioned to expect instant gratification.
Yeah, this really ties back to the idea of the infosphere. It's not just that we're like interacting with information, but we're immersed in it. We're bombarded with stimuli,
Hmm.
and it shapes not just what we think, but how we think.
Exactly. And it changes how we, form relationships. It affects our attention spans,
Mm.
our ability to focus. And Han asks this interesting question. Are smartphones kind of like transitional objects,
Mm-hmm.
the way like a child's teddy bear might be,
Okay.
helping us navigate a really complex world?
Or are they more like these digital companions that are offering us a sense of connection, but maybe isolating us from real human interaction?
That's the question we have to consider, because smartphones, for all of their benefits, they blur the lines
Mm.
between our inner world and our outer world.
And we can't forget the way that smartphones have transformed how we share our lives.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
constantly documenting everything, our thoughts, our experiences, every move we make, turning our lives into the stream of data that's uploaded and shared.
It's like the smartphone has become a confessional booth,
Mm.
and we're constantly revealing ourselves to this digital world.
Speaking of sharing, I think we have to delve into the selfie phenomenon. If the smartphone is like the king of the digital age, the selfie is the queen.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about the contrast between analog photos
Mm-hmm.
and the digital immediacy of a selfie. Analog photos
Yeah.
often capture these stories,
Yeah.
moments that are frozen in time,
Mm.
meant to be kept and cherished. And selfies are created to be shared online, to get likes and comments,
Mm.
and then quickly forgotten
Mhm.
in the endless scroll of social media.
It's like, Shiyui, they're these fleeting bursts of self-representation that are contributing to the loss of storytelling and historical depth
Yeah.
in the digital realm.
And Han describes selfies as talkative but poor in expression, which I think is a great way of
Yeah.
capturing that tension between wanting to be seen, but the difficulty of conveying any real emotion or depth
Mm-hmm.
through this carefully curated image.
It makes me wonder if, in the age of the selfie, we're losing the ability to connect with deeper levels of meaning and expression.
It's a question worth pondering, and it leads us to another question that Han grapples with.
Mm.
Can artificial intelligence truly think?
That's a big one. I mean, AI is advancing at an incredible pace.
Yeah.
Like, we're seeing it do amazing things that we never thought possible before. But Han argues that true thinking requires more than just processing information. He says that AI lacks the capacity for genuine thought because it lacks emotions, embodied experience, and what he calls pathos, which is that capacity for feeling and experiencing the world in a way that informs understanding.
Yeah, so AI might be great at recognizing patterns and making calculations, but it can't truly understand the world in the same way that humans do.
So AI might be able to write a poem or compose a song, but it wouldn't really get the emotions behind it.
Exactly. Han argues that understanding requires more than just processing data. It requires this pathos, this depth of feeling, and lived experience that shapes how we understand the world.
This makes me think about all the ways we're relying on AI to make decisions for us, like from medical diagnoses to financial decisions. If AI can't feel or understand human emotions, can we really trust it to make decisions that are in our best interest?
That's a big question. As we integrate AI more and more into our lives,
Yeah.
Han's perspective is a good reminder that there are aspects of human experience
Yeah.
that might always be beyond the reach
Yeah.
of artificial intelligence.
We've been exploring a lot of the downsides of this shift toward the digital order.
Yeah.
But does Han offer any solutions? Is there a way to kind of reclaim our connection to the real world, to the things that matter?
He thinks there is. He suggests we need to rediscover what he calls the magic of things,
Okay.
a way of being in the world that prioritizes presence and meaning over this constant digital stimulation. He suggests that we cultivate presence, being fully engaged in the moment, experiencing the world through our senses.
So like putting down our phones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And paying attention to what's around us, the details, the textures, the sounds.
Yeah.
He uses examples in the book, like this thing called Odradek, which is this strange spool-like object from a Kafka story that seems to have a life of its own. Or the silent power of Cézanne's paintings that invite us to contemplate and connect with something beyond just the everyday.
It sounds like it's about finding those things that spark a sense of wonder
Right.
and draw us into a deeper experience of the world. Like, that feeling of being
Yeah.
completely absorbed in a good book.
Yeah,
or just lost in the beauty of nature.
precisely. Have you ever felt that? Like a sense of awe or mystery?
Yeah. Being completely absorbed in something outside of yourself.
Yeah.
Definitely. I remember one time I was visiting a botanical garden and I was completely mesmerized
Yeah.
by this one flower. Like the intricate details of it. It was like I was seeing it for the first time, noticing all these subtle variations in color, the texture of the petals.
Yeah. And that's the kind of attention that Han is talking about. He believes that cultivating that ability to be present, to really see and experience the world around us, is essential for finding meaning and connection in a digital age that so often feels
Yeah.
fragmented and superficial.
Yeah. Okay, so how do we actually cultivate that presence in a world that's constantly vying for our attention? It feels like a real challenge to just be still and observe.
Yeah. Han actually points to silence
Yeah.
as a key element in reclaiming our attention and our ability to connect with the world on this deeper level. And he's not just talking about the absence of sound, but this deeper kind of inner stillness
Okay.
that allows us to just be present
Yeah.
with our experience.
Okay, so wait a minute. Is he saying we all need to become Luddites and abandon the digital world altogether?
Not necessarily. I think it's more about a balanced approach, recognizing that technology can be a powerful tool,
Yeah.
but also a potential distraction
Yeah.
from the things that nourish our souls.
So it's not about rejecting technology outright, but finding ways to use it more intentionally.
Exactly. Creating space for silence and reflection in our lives.
Like maybe putting our phones away during meals or taking a walk in nature
Yeah.
without headphones. Just sitting in silence for a few minutes each day.
Those are great examples. It's about being more mindful
Hmm.
of
Yeah.
how we engage with technology and making choices
Hmm.
that align with our values.
And this leads to Han's idea of things of the heart.
Right. The things that ground us,
Yeah.
give our lives a sense of purpose and
Yeah.
meaning.
Things of the heart. I like that. Tell me more.
Think about the little prince
Yeah.
and, the fox,
Yeah.
who teaches the prince about taming and creating bonds.
Uh,
Han used that analogy to talk about
Yeah.
cultivating meaningful connections.
uh,
In our lives, he suggests that things of the heart are the things that we cherish, the things that require time,
mm.
patience, and presence to nurture.
So things of the heart could be like our relationships with loved ones,
Yeah.
our passions.
Exactly. Our hobbies, even treasured objects that hold special memories.
Yeah. These are the things that make life worth living.
Right. They bring us joy. They connect us to something larger than ourselves. And Han emphasizes the role of rituals and repetition in fostering those connections.
Oh.
Like, think about a familiar routine or a shared tradition or the way that an object can evoke a memory.
Yeah, it's about finding those anchors that ground us
Yeah.
and give us a sense of stability in a world that can feel really chaotic,
Mhm.
uncertain.
And Han argues that it's often in those seemingly small, everyday moments, the things that our eyes might overlook, that the heart truly sees and finds meaning.
It makes me think about that saying, home is where the heart is. It's not just about a place, but that feeling of belonging and connection.
Yeah, that we
Yeah.
create with people and things that we love.
And Han believes that in this digital world, that's constantly pushing us toward novelty and instant gratification. We need to be intentional about cultivating those things that nourish the heart, things that require time and patience and presence. It's a challenge when we're bombarded with messages telling us to buy more, do more, be more, always chasing the next thing, never fully satisfied with what we have. Yeah, it's like we're creating depth of experience for breadth of information. We're connected to everything, but not really present with anything.
That's a great point. And it actually relates to what Han says about AI. He suggests that while AI might be able to process tons of data and even mimic human conversation, it can't really think because it lacks that capacity for feeling, for embodied experience.
So AI could like write a poem
Yeah.
or compose music,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't understand those emotions behind the creative work.
Exactly. Han argues that, true understanding, it requires more than just processing data. It needs what he calls pathos, that depth of feeling and lived experience that shapes how we see the world.
Okay, so this makes me think about like all those ways that we're relying on AI now to make decisions that affect our lives, like
Yeah.
medical diagnoses or financial investments. If AI can't feel or understand human emotions, how can we be sure it's making decisions that are really in our best interests?
That's such an important question to consider, especially, as we integrate AI more and more into our lives. Han's perspective reminds us that there are just some things about the human experience that
Oh.
might always be out of reach for AI.
Yeah, it is kind of unsettling to think about, especially as we're giving more and more control to these algorithms. But let's maybe shift gears a bit here and talk about some potential solutions.
Okay.
So, does Han offer any guidance on how we can reclaim that connection with the real world, to the
Um,
things that actually matter?
he does. He believes that we need to rediscover something he calls the magic of things,
Okay.
which is a way of being in the world that puts presence and meaning above that constant digital stimulation.
Mm.
He suggests that we cultivate presence, being fully engaged in the present moment, experiencing the world through our senses.
Okay, so like putting our phones down.
Exactly. You're
Yeah.
paying attention to what's around us, the details, the textures, the
I'm
sounds.
getting it. He uses these really interesting examples in the book, like that thing called Odradek. It's this weird spool-like object from one of Kafka's stories that seems to have this life of its own. Or he talks about like the silent power of Suzanne's paintings that make us kind of stop and think, connect with something beyond just like everyday life. It sounds like it's about finding those things that spark that sense of wonder
Right.
and draw us into a deeper experience of the world, like that feeling when you're totally absorbed in a good book or lost in nature.
Exactly. Have you ever experienced something like that? Like a sense of awe or mystery?
Oh, yeah, definitely. When you're just totally focused on something outside of yourself. Like I remember one time I was at a botanical garden and I was just totally mesmerized by this flower, like the intricate details of it. It was like I was seeing it for the first time, all those colors, the textures.
That's exactly the kind of attention that Han is talking about.
Yeah.
He thinks that we need to cultivate that ability to be present, to really see and experience the world. It's essential for finding meaning and connection in a digital age,
Yeah.
where everything feels fragmented and superficial.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we cultivate that presence? When the world's constantly trying to get our attention, it feels hard to just be still and observe.
It is challenging, but Han points to silence as one of the keys to reclaiming our attention and our ability to connect with the world
Okay.
on a deeper level.
Mhm.
And he's not just talking about like no sounds, but more this kind of inner stillness that lets us just be present
Okay.
with our experience.
So wait a minute, is he saying we should all become Luddites and like ditch technology?
Not really. I think it's about finding more of a balance, recognizing that technology is a tool, but it can also be a distraction from the things that are good for us.
Okay, so not rejecting technology,
Yeah.
but finding ways to be more intentional with it.
Exactly. Creating space for silence and reflection.
So like putting your phone away at dinner or taking a walk without headphones,
Yeah.
maybe just sitting in silence for a bit each day.
Exactly. Those are great examples. It's about being mindful of how we engage with technology, making choices that are right for us.
And this brings us to Han's idea of things of the heart, the things that give our lives meaning and purpose.
Right.
So tell me more about that.
Okay, so think about the story of the little prince
Yeah.
and the fox,
Yeah.
who teaches him about taming and creating bonds. Han uses that to explain how we can have meaningful connections in our lives.
Yeah.
He suggests that things of the heart are those things that we cherish, the things that take time, patience, and presence to really nurture.
Okay, so things of the heart could be like relationships with people we love, our passions.
Exactly. Our hobbies, even just like objects we treasure that hold special memories.
Yeah, those are the things that make life worth living. They bring us joy. They connect us to something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And Han points out the importance of rituals and repetition in developing those connections. Think about like a familiar routine or a shared tradition, even just the way that an object can remind us of a memory.
It's about finding the things that make us feel grounded, give us a sense of stability when the world feels chaotic
Yeah.
and uncertain.
Exactly. And Han says that it's often in those small everyday moments, those things that our eyes might miss, where the heart really sees and finds meaning.
It makes me think about that saying, home is where the heart is. It's not about the place. But that feeling of belonging and connection we get.
Right. From the people and things we love.
And in a digital world that's always pushing us towards new things and instant gratification, Han thinks we really need to be intentional about cultivating those things that nourish our hearts, the things that require time, patience, and presence, which can be hard when we're constantly being told to buy more, do more, be more. We're always looking ahead to the next thing, never satisfied with what we have.
Yeah, it's almost like we're always looking ahead to that next upgrade or the next notification, the next hit of dopamine.
Right. And that's exactly what the digital order feeds on, our dissatisfaction, that craving for more. But Han suggests that, True fulfillment doesn't come from acquiring more things. It comes from deepening those connections with the things that already have meaning for us.
Okay, those things of the heart.
Yeah. So it's not about like rejecting technology completely. It's about finding a way to use it that supports a meaningful life.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's about being more intentional with our relationship with technology and choosing to engage with it in a way that aligns with our values.
Yeah. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with presence and silence. Finding those moments in our lives where we can disconnect from all that digital noise, reconnect with ourselves, with the people we love, with the things that bring us joy.
And it's in those moments of quiet, in those genuine connections, that I think we find the most meaning and belonging. As Hans suggests, it's in the silence and the presence and in those things of the heart that we discover what it means to be human.
It's a good reminder that, like, the most meaningful things in life are often the simplest things, the things we might overlook in that pursuit of more. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I have one last thought for you to consider. What's one thing that you can pay attention to today? Something that you can be fully present with, maybe something you can connect with on a deeper level, something that can pull you out of that infosphere, even just for a little bit. Until next time, keep diving deep.